we're back with the Embodied Love Lounge, and we have an extremely special treat for you. We are in Turkey with the Sir James Marshall.
They knighted me.
Yes.
The Queen didn't do that.
We definitely knighted you.
Yes.
I'm definitely not officially a knight. No.
Well, we wanted to go and bring you on today, though, because a lot of times in the sex education world, everyone's talking just about the bedroom, but most people have no clue then how to actually get someone to the bedroom.
Yes, you have to do that first. Almost always you have to do that first.
Strangely.
And if there was to be a knighting around doing that, that would be then you, because you definitely have put a lot of time into that. So maybe just give us a little introduction to what you've been doing in this field, how long you've been doing it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, tell us a little about yourself, James.
All right, well, yes, I'm James Marshall, and I run a company called The Natural Lifestyles, and for the last nearly, I think it's 15 years now, I've been teaching almost exclusively men the art and science of meeting women and getting them on dates and then getting them into sexual relationships. So, my work fits within the pickup artistry world, which has a lot of different connotations, some of them negative and some of them understandably so. But, my emphasis for many years has been, like, I teach guys technical things, like how to have different types of conversational frameworks and how to escalate physically and how to have good dates that work. So there's a lot of components of practical elements to it. But in my, research over the years, I've certainly come to realize that there's a whole range of internal issues for most guys, well, for my type of guys anyway, to do with worthiness, to do with confidence, to do with analytical thinking and delivery, as opposed to being able to emotionally relate to people. So over the years, I've worked with different specialists in my team so that we hit things from various different angles. Everything from their style, their grooming, their lifestyle, their mentality, their emotional intelligence, and through to the practicalities of how to meet strangers and start something, which is, if we wanted to define pickup artistry or being this kind of street level dating coach, it really is the process of okay, I don't know you, how do I go over there and start something with a complete random stranger?
Yes.
Which for most men that are, let's say, not socially situated in circumstances where there's lots of options around, which is my market, they have to be able to do that. They have to be able to, pick themselves up, bowl over two strangers because they can't rely on a cool social circle full of cool, sexy guys and gals, because lots of people don't have that. And so they have to get it started. And for better or worse, it's up to the man most of the time to initiate that. It'd be cool if it wasn't, but the reality is that that's the way most societies and most subcultures work, is that men have to be proactive and make the first and often subsequent moves. And so I teach men how to do that in a way that is honest, no bullshit. I don't teach them lines or canned routines or scripts of things to say, because those things are lame and they don't really work and they're difficult to memorize. And so I try to help the guy to find what is his own style of seduction, what's his own vibe, by using principle-based learning. So in a nutshell, that's it.
I love it. I'm really excited to have you here. I love you. You're like a brother to me. And what I do love about what you're doing with people, to me, it has integrity. You do really respect women and you want them to have a beautiful time. In this time and age, I think it's really important to bring that element in. So I'm really excited for this conversation. And I have to say, a couple of times I call it the James Marshall, where I'm in a different city and then this guy comes up and he does this thing. I'm like, that is a James Marshall move. And I just love it because it's polite, it's delightful, it lights up my day. This is very lovely. That it's a type of quality of social interaction that I think we could use more of in the world. So.
Yeah, I really like how you bring this into an art form, and it's not just sort of like a canned line, one fits all thing. And that's something that we try and do with penetrative sex. And the fact that you're doing this with ethical pickup, I think is amazing. How do you see this kind of then feeding into and keeping intimacy alive in relationships?
Well,
or maybe in relationships, just even throughout the whole process.
Well, for the avatar of the standard guy that I'm working with is often a nice guy, very, very sweet, often quite shy, often let's say more than above average intelligence intellectually, but maybe below average socially or emotionally. And you know, like you do hear these complaints a lot from women that where are all the good men? And whenever a woman says that, I said, there's 1 there, there's 5 there, there's 9 over there. Like they're actually everywhere. It's just that they're invisible to most women because they don't actually have the proactive skills to go and like present themselves as sexy men, basically. So there's not really a lack of good men out there. There's a lack of good men who are able to. Yeah, they are actually out there. I'm like, where? No, I'm like, no. What you're talking about is you want the player assholes, and there's not that many of those out there. Whereas there's plenty of actually good dudes out there, but they're not necessarily triggering attraction in women, right? Because they're being too polite or taking too much time or just, you know, staring and not doing anything. So for developing their masculinity in a really positive way, they have to learn to be proactive. And that, you know, as we've talked about many times before, that is often what triggers attraction from a woman, or turns it, you know, or she doesn't want it at all. And so, you know, a man learning to be direct and clear with his intention, to be able to project good sexual intent, to be able to not do what a lot of classic nice guys do, which is use covert contracts. So like, which is the standard thing of like, every woman's had this experience where she's had a male friend or an acquaintance who she thought was a friend, and then 8 months into the friendship, he like sends her a poem or leans in and awkwardly tries to kiss her or tells or expresses all his feelings to her, which is a turn off because it's kind of a lie, right? Because they've been presenting one thing as a friend and then hoping to transition into lover, where most women kind of categorize men as either, well, like irrelevant friend or lover material, and they don't usually cross over so much. Whereas for a man, it can be like, oh, whatever, you know, she's my friend and she wants to fuck me today, I'll do that too.
I do like that you're bringing this up because it's something I've heard you say as well, that when you're in that dating scene and you're going around, like you're very clear, like to let the person know that this is going to be about sex and not friendship. So there's a very like honest approach to your desires. Would you speak a little more to that?
Yeah, like it's not, that doesn't mean necessarily, you know, that doesn't mean being blunt or crude, right? It's not like, okay, you know, it's saying I want to fuck you within the first 3 minutes of meeting somebody. It's that it can be as simple as giving a clear compliment, looking somebody in the eyes and asking them out. Right? Like rather than like, let's hang out sometime, or, you know, maybe we exchange numbers to talk about that thing we're both interested in, which is indirect and weak and can be kind of deceptive. To be just clear about the fact that you want to ask somebody to go out. I want to take you out. I want to, you know, spend the evening with you, and I want to take you for a drink or whatever. This like clears away so much ambiguity, lack of clarity in what's going on, and it gets clearly and quickly to a yes or a no. And like, you know, you brought up when we were kind of chatting about this before we press play, the idea of like ethical pickup, because I understand why the world of pickup has a bad rap. Because certainly back in the early days when I was first starting out, there was a lot of wild and weird characters in this scene who I kind of miss because they were such freaks, but they've mostly been cleaned out at this point. You know, guys using hypnotism or like
manipulation.
Manipulation. But like, whenever someone says, you know, what do you want your teachers manipulation? I often say, yes, absolutely it is. And then I walk it back, because if I smile at you, I'm manipulating you in some way. You know, like if I step out of I'm walking down the street and I step out and I start to talk with somebody and I'm polite and friendly and cheeky with them, yes, I'm manipulating the events that wouldn't have occurred otherwise. Right? So like, in some sense, you know, seduction is a type of manipulation of the social fabric of, you know, people communicating. But it's
to me then it's like influencing them.
It's like the difference is, I think where it becomes dark is where I have dark intentions. Like if I'm a single guy and I want to go on a date, it's completely ethical. It's way more ethical for me to roll up to someone, I don't know, in a bookshop or in a park and say, hey, you're looking cute, what's your name? Than it is to try and get a girl wasted at a bar, right? Or to, you know, pretend to be her friend for 3 years and then, you know, when she's vulnerable after a breakup, you know, go, oh, come here, baby.
Which is complete manipulation.
There's all sorts of things that people do to pick each other up that are highly unethical. And so,
I love that.
You know, being able to just like go and meet a stranger and go straight from the get-go, as we say in Australia, let them know I'm here because I'm a man who's attracted to you, and I'm going to find out some stuff about you, and I'm not ashamed or like making apologies for the fact that the first thing I noticed was that you were hot. All right, like that's what leads a man's attraction usually if he doesn't know the girl socially, and then to find out what she's like, and then to ask her out on a date. There's nothing on it. It's completely ethical and far more ethical than many of the other variations of slimy, sleazy things that people do to get each other into bed, both men and women.
Yes, and honestly, women do want to meet guys, and so if it's done in that way, they are at choice. I'm at choice. If I don't know what you want, then I'm like, what's going on here? If I know what you want, then I'm like, actually, I do want that, or no, thank you, I don't want that.
Yep.
And I think it's a much nicer social interaction at that point. And then it makes me like men more because that's why I like New York. I like directness.
Yeah.
I don't like the West Coast because it's like this sneak thing. Like, I'm going to ignore her because I like her. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah. Whereas New York, like, do you want a date or not? Okay, can we get to the point? You don't? Okay, fine. Get out of my way then.
Well, I think the thing that you bring the artistry though, and if there is any kind of supposed manipulation, is that you make the interaction fun for the person, and I think that's something that's just brilliant.
Yeah, well, I mean, and for a large swath of men, it's their only option, right? Like it's like because as I said before, there's this massive kind of invisible group of men that exist in all countries, but I'm working with Western men primarily. Who are just who are unseen by women in general, and they deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of frustration, a lot of loneliness, and they're good people, right? Like they actually have a lot of good things to offer, and so like I have no lack. I don't lose any sleep over my work because I know that I've seen it thousands of times of men meeting with a woman, hooking up in whatever way they want to, and people sometimes ask, well, is it just about sex? I'm like, well, that's up to them. Like. The couple can decide if it's just about sex or if it's about, a casual relationship or getting married. I've had, and they're like, has anyone ever got married? I'm like, yeah, a bunch of my people have got married. A bunch of, had relationships. A bunch had some hot sex with people who wanted to have hot sex. A bunch had, started to date and then it didn't work and became friends. Like all the things that happen when two people get together, those are the things that happen. Because there's no because we're not using hypnotism or drugs or something to trick somebody into doing something they don't want to do. We're just accelerating what is a natural process anyway of man meets woman. They decide what they want to do with it afterwards. That's not my responsibility.
Well, maybe you could bust that myth. I mean, you've met a lot of women at this point, and how many of them you say are actually wanting to get streamlined into marriage versus actually they just would prefer just to have a hookup there and then and not have to get attached and everything.
Yeah. Well, it's like the same woman through the cycles of her dating, her life, let's say, is often going to go through a variety of things where she wants a boyfriend, she gets a boyfriend, she breaks up with a boyfriend, she doesn't want all the hassle and she's heartbroken or she doesn't want to deal with that, but she has sexual needs, so she wants to have a fuck buddy, or she goes on some holiday and she's feeling wild and she wants to do a random bunch of hookups, and then she feels like maybe when a good guy comes along that suits her that she would go into another relationship, or maybe someone proposes something which is a bit more open and she's open to that. So it's more about where are you catching the woman at in her dating cycle, let's say, and then do your desires match up with hers, or are people willing to adapt to what's presented in front of them, which is often the case where, if a woman who's like, I'm single and I'm going to stay single, and then she meets the guy, she's like, nope, I'm going to take that guy. Or the other way around where she's come out of something and she really is clear that okay, I don't have the emotional range right now or to invest in someone, but this guy's no hassle. He does not blowing up my phone all the time. He's not being the opposite of that. He's not being needy. He's not trying to lock me down, and that's what I want right now, is someone that doesn't cause me drama, but I can have intimacy or friendship plus sex with. It's it's sometimes giving pickup artists too much credit to think that they could totally manipulate someone into completely changing what they wanted. Sure, there are. I mean, there's certainly sociopathic people who are really great manipulators, but they exist in broad spectrums. They're not pooled in this area. So what was the question?
Well, I think it's really important because a lot of the women, I work predominantly with women, so I have a large community of women. They're like, where are the good men? But also just where are the men who actually want to meet them, because they're not meeting people. People are socially awkward, or the women are not using the apps. Like there's a lot of repulsion to certain activities. So I think there's a lack of skill set outside of apps and sites and these different things of how real people in real life situations can meet. And I'd love to just know a little bit more, like maybe some basic things that you just teach someone. How do you just walk up to somebody? I mean, it sounds really normal, but I don't think it is.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has been at points in history, but yeah, certainly I've even seen just since I've been working in the last 15 years, the advent of the smartphone and like a atomization of people out of communities. People just spending shitloads of time in front of screens, having weird expectations about what people should be based on social media and so on. That the dating market has become skewed and strange kind of worldwide, and it's difficult for men and women in different ways. I think I can get into that in a bit, but like in terms of, like throughout most of, let's say at least modern history, you would have community bases from where to meet people. You would have things where the community in some way forces you to get together at
like
village,
church.
Yeah, church or village dances, or living in the same block, being brought up in the same block, and so you know the people down the street and so on. And there's all these awesome things about modern times that we can travel and we can work remotely and we can interact and connect with people all across the world using machines and stuff. There's lots of great things, but the stats don't lie in terms of especially for millennials and the younger generations being extremely lonely, lacking intimacy, lacking sex, and that's to do with modern life.
Yeah.
So, it's funny now that it's like a weird thing to go and say hi to somebody like that. Like I remember when the first really rudimentary dating sites came out, and it was a shameful thing to have met someone on one of those dating OkCupid or one of those early things. You're like, how did you meet? Oh, well, we met at church, or he came and talked to me at the bus stop, and then you find out, what, on our website? And now, weirdly, within one decade, it's flipped to the other side, that like,
what, you met at a bus stop?
Yes, someone came and talked
up to the person
and used his own mouth.
Hello, you didn't use
There
an
was a
emoji?
screen in between. Mouth, you heard the words from his own mouth.
There wasn't like these weird
It's
signals.
which is this was crazy that's now a weird thing. In terms of like some specifics of what do I teach men, like the first moments count, definitely, right? Like a woman is going to screen the man in or out within 5 seconds at least to give him a chance, or 5 to 10 seconds at least to decide whether she wants to give him a chance to have a talk. So for the guy, like the reason why it often doesn't work, or why it comes across awkwardly, is the guy is in his head. He's trying to plan ahead about what he should say, like trying to get ready to say his thing.
Yeah.
He's also preparing for the worst, right? So often guys that are not used to this will be running movies in their head of the girl, calling the cops, kicking
every
the
time
balls.
they've been rejected. Yeah,
like the nastiest possible thing's going to happen, which can
coffee
happen.
on him.
Yeah, like I've seen everything, because I've watched Girl Meets Boy thousands of times. A big part of my job is putting microphones on guys, pushing them out on the streets, talk to a girl, I listen in, and so I've seen everything that can happen in that scenario. And when you see like a spread of like 100 interactions with one guy, you'll typically see that 5 to 10%, and this can depend on the country, like in a very vivacious country like Spain or something, like you might get a lot more positive like social stuff, whereas if you're in Germany or Norway, you might get a lot more coldness. But overall, you'll see like 5 to 10% of women will be like blunt, get out of my face, or just blank them. 5 to 10% will be like overly friendly and really like, really engaging. And the rest will be kind of maybe not, I'll see what's going to happen. And that's where a guy that's doing this has to get repetition in, right? You can't just go and talk to one woman and then if she says go away, presume that all women don't want to talk to you, which is often what guys do, which is weird because they're often really analytical and science-based, and then I'm like, that's not a good data spread, mate. You need at least 100 to if you want any real data on this. So the first things that I'm working with guys is to like be more embodied and relaxed. So even just walking over there and feeling their feet as they walk, looking at the girl and projecting a warmth and friendliness and curiosity with their intention with their eyes, because the moment she notices him in her periphery, it's already started.
Yes.
Right. So if the guy's like tromping over there and she's seeing this guy tromping towards her, and then he goes, then switches it on like, hi, I'm here to do the approaching thing, then it's going to be incongruent. It's going to be weird. So like I always say, it's like the moment you step towards her, imagine that you're in a conversation and you're warm and friendly and you're just curious about it. Then in terms of like, there's lots of practicalities. Like if she's walking towards the guy, then he shouldn't be walking directly towards her. He should be walking, shoulder to shoulder, put his hand out, smile, and then the hand is the stop, and then step into the left if she's on the left, for example. And then present himself in a way where, like, there's lots of technical aspects. If she's doing something, right, then it's good to note that, right? Like, so she's carrying a bunch of shopping and she's got headphones on. If I wave and go like this, likely she'll take it off, and then I say, I can see you carrying your heavy shopping home from work. You probably don't want to stop for long, but I had to let you know, and then, give her a compliment or tell her that you wanted to meet her. So showing like that you understand her situation, or the girl's walking twice as fast as everyone else on the street. If you can, be smart enough, you can go, okay, well, she's in a rush. So when I go over and say, excuse me, I can see you're in a bit of a rush. You're late for work. That automatically shows her that you have some social nous.
Yeah, and you care enough.
Yeah, right. That you're actually like, okay, I get that I'm not just trying to impose my situation, or I am a little bit, but I'm going to adapt to yours. And then from there, there's so many different kind of spider webs of what we can do. With guys that are starting out at this at a beginner's level, I usually tell them to give as specific a compliment as they can. It's not always, like, I don't always do that now, but for guys that are scared about revealing their intention, saying that you find her attractive, or you find her sexy, or you love the swing of her hips in that summer dress, or whatever the specific compliment is a powerful thing for a man to just get it out, because then it's really clear what's going on.
Yeah.
Right, as opposed to anything indirect, anything asking directions, or bolting down the street to then say, those are really interesting shoes, like as if you really cared about the shoes. Because women know that, they know that men don't run down the streets to compliment the fabric of her jacket.
But I love that you say that, because I was in a schmancy hotel once in Denver, and I had the shoes. I had nice shoes and really hot pants. And these two guys walk by and they compliment the shoes. And then I look up at the guy who's checking me into the hotel, and like, it's not the shoes they're looking at. He goes, so it was just a really funny
It's like
moment.
the shoes are there to get the attention. They're not there to become the conversational piece.
It's like, mention the shoes later.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, by the way, those are like fucking you're rocking those Louboutins. But the reason was the legs in the Louboutins. The shoes were also nice.
Exactly. I want to get more juicy with you. These are really great stories. We're going to flip over, I think, into the membership portion of the conversation. And here I just want you to let loose. Just really tell us some nice juicy juicy details, because I know you have a lot of stories. So let's just jump into that part of the conversation.
All right. What do you want to know?
To join us for the complete and explicit version of the podcast, simply upgrade your membership and gain instant access.